Something just happened in the NASCAR world that has people absolutely divided. Drivers, fans, even one of the most respected voices in the sport is now calling it out. We're talking about a penalty decision from the Würth 400 that didn't just raise eyebrows, it lit a fire under the entire NASCAR garage. Because on one hand, you've got one driver being punished for what NASCAR says was intentional wrecking, and on the other hand, a very similar situation that somehow walked away completely clean. And here's where it gets messy. When a legend like Dale Earnhardt Jr. steps in and says, "I don't agree with this one. You know this isn't just another routine officiating debate. Stick with me, because this isn't just about one race. This is about consistency, trust, and where NASCAR draws the line going forward." And hey, real quick, if you are a true NASCAR fan like me, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe to the channel. NASCAR Nation news is just getting started. We are pushing for our next subscriber milestone, and it's all about real talk from fans who live this sport every week. All right, let's get into it. So here's what actually went down. NASCAR officially handed out penalties coming out of the Würth 400, and the decision immediately split the fan base right down the middle. Ryan Preece was penalized. The call from NASCAR? Intentional wrecking. According to officials, the evidence was clear enough. They reviewed everything. Video, in-car audio, SMT data, and NASCAR spokesperson Mike Forty made it very clear on the Hauler Talk podcast. What basically sealed it, in their eyes, was that Preece didn't just get caught in a racing incident, he allegedly said what he was going to do and then did it. That's the key phrase NASCAR is leaning on here. Intent. Not just contact, not just chaos, but intent. And in their words, that's what turned it into a penalty situation. Now here's where everything flips. Kyle Busch was also involved in a wreck during the same race situation. Same general chaos, same intensity, same aggressive racing environment. But Kyle Busch, no penalty. And that right there is where the entire NASCAR world started to split in half. Because fans immediately started asking the obvious question, if intent matters for Ryan Preece, then what about Kyle Busch? Why does one driver get hit and the other walks away untouched? That's where the controversy really exploded. Social media lit up. Analysts started questioning consistency. And fans started doing what NASCAR fans always do when something doesn't feel right. They start rewinding the footage, comparing incidents, and demanding explanations. But the biggest voice in this entire conversation? Dale Earnhardt Jr. And he didn't hold back. Earnhardt Jr. spoke out in a social media video, and his message was brutally straightforward. He basically said what a lot of fans were already thinking but weren't saying out loud. "I didn't think either one would get penalized," he said. And then he dropped the real hammer. "If you're not going to penalize Kyle, I don't think you can penalize Preece." That's the core of the entire debate right there. Because Jr. isn't just arguing about one incident, he's questioning the standard. And then he went even further. He acknowledged NASCAR's reasoning about intent, but even then, he wasn't convinced. "I'm going to assume it was because he all but admitted to what he was going to do," he added. "But honestly, I don't agree with this one." And finally, he summed up what a lot of people felt but couldn't quite articulate. "I was really surprised by this decision. This is quite an interesting turn of events." Now think about what that means coming from someone like Jr. This isn't just a random fan reaction. This is one of NASCAR's most respected voices openly saying the decision doesn't sit right. And here's the bigger picture you need to understand. NASCAR has been trying for years to tighten up race control, especially around aggressive driving and retaliation. They want cleaner standards, clearer penalties, less gray area. But moments like this are exactly what create doubt. Because if drivers and fans don't know what actually crosses the line, then every controversial wreck becomes a guessing game. And in a playoff-driven sport where every point matters, that inconsistency can feel huge. Think about Ryan Preece for a second. A penalty like this doesn't just affect one race, it can impact momentum, mindset, and playoff positioning depending on timing. Now compare that to Kyle Busch escaping penalty in the same type of chaos environment, and you start to see why fans are frustrated. It's not just about who got punished. It's about whether the rulebook feels consistent from one driver to the next. And right now, a lot of people don't think it does. Here's the thing, NASCAR is in a tricky spot. If they punish intent too harshly, they risk turning aggressive racing into something sterile. Drivers start backing off, rivalries lose heat, the sport loses that edge fans love. But if they don't punish it consistently, then you get exactly what we're seeing now: confusion, backlash, and debates about fairness. And let's be real, this isn't the first time this has happened, and it won't be the last. The garage is watching this closely too. Drivers talk. They compare notes. They study how NASCAR handles these calls because it directly affects how they race the next week. If one driver thinks they can get away with something another gets penalized for, that changes behavior on track immediately. And that's where NASCAR has to be careful. Because once trust in officiating starts to crack, it doesn't matter how exciting the racing is, people start questioning every big moment. Dale Jr.'s reaction just amplified that concern, not because he's trying to create controversy, but because he's pointing out the inconsistency that fans are already feeling. And whether you agree with him or not, one thing is clear: this decision is going to be talked about for a long time. So now I want to throw this to you, because this is where the NASCAR world is completely split. Should NASCAR be focusing more on intent when handing out penalties, or should they only punish based on what actually happens on the track, regardless of what a driver meant to do? Because right now, that line is getting blurrier every single week. Drop your opinion in the comments. I really want to see where you stand on this one. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more real NASCAR breakdowns right here on NASCAR Nation News. Because if this one thing is clear after the Würth 400 controversy, it's that this conversation is far from over.